My name is Marek Kowalski, and this is the story of how I found myself behind the unforgiving walls of Wronki Prison, one of Poland's largest and most notorious correctional facilities. I was born and raised in a small village near Poznan, where life was simple and everyone knew each other. I worked as a mechanic, a trade passed down from my father. My life was unremarkable until the day I was accused of a crime I didn't commit. It began with a robbery at a local jewelry store. The thieves were swift and left little evidence, but the police were under immense pressure to solve the case. Unfortunately, I fit the vague description provided by a witness, a man of average height with dark hair. That, coupled with my prior misdemeanor for a bar fight years ago, made me an easy target. Despite my alibi and the lack of concrete evidence, I was arrested and charged with armed robbery. The trial was swift, and the public defender assigned to me seemed indifferent to my pleas of innocence. The prosecution painted me as a repeat offender, escalating his criminal activities. The jury, swayed by the narrative and the desire for justice, found me guilty. I was sentenced to 10 years in Wronki Prison. The verdict hit me like a freight train. The thought of spending a decade in a place known for its harsh conditions was unbearable. But what gnawed at me more was the injustice of it all. I was innocent, yet I was being punished as a criminal. Wronki Prison, located in the Greater Poland Voivodeship, has a reputation that precedes it. Established in the late 19th century, it has housed some of the country's most dangerous offenders. The massive red brick walls, topped with razor wire, exude an aura of despair. Inside, the environment is as grim as one would expect. Overcrowding is a persistent issue, with cells designed for 2, often housing 3 or more inmates. The official capacity might suggest otherwise, but reality paints a different picture. Upon arrival, I was processed and led to my cell, a cramped space with barely enough room to move. The stench of sweat and mold was overpowering. My cellmate, Pyotr, was a burly man with tattoos covering his arms. He eyed me suspiciously, but said nothing. Life in Wronki was a monotonous routine of roll calls, meager meals, and mandatory labor. Inmates were expected to work, performing tasks like cleaning, maintenance, or for those with specific skills, jobs in the prison workshops. I was assigned to the metal shop, where we crafted basic tools and repaired equipment. The work was grueling, but it provided a temporary escape from the confines of the cell. Education programs were available, but participation was limited. Inmates without primary education were required to attend classes, but resources were scarce, and the quality of education was subpar. Rehabilitation seemed more a concept than a practice. The guards maintained order with an iron fist. Any dissent was met with swift punishment, often solitary confinement in a windowless cell. Medical care was minimal, and getting attention for any ailment required navigating a bureaucratic maze. Despite the oppressive environment, I found solace in the prison library. It was one of the few places where I could momentarily forget my predicament. I immersed myself in books, escaping to different worlds, if only for a while. Months turned into years, and the weight of my unjust sentence bore down on me. I filed appeals, wrote letters to advocacy groups, and even reached out to the media, but my cries fell on deaf ears. The system had labeled me a criminal, and nothing I did seemed to change that perception. It was during one of those sleepless nights, lying on the hard bunk, that the thought first crossed my mind: escape. At first, I dismissed it as a foolish notion. But as time dragged on and hope waned, the idea took root. If the system wouldn't grant me justice, perhaps I had to seize it myself. The decision wasn't made lightly. I knew the risks. Failure would mean additional years added to my sentence, or worse. But the thought of spending the prime years of my life in this hellhole for a crime I didn't commit was a fate I couldn't accept. And so, with a heavy heart and steely resolve, I began to plan my escape from Wronki Prison. The decision to escape from Wronki Prison was not made lightly. Aware of the high risks and the prison's formidable security measures, I knew meticulous planning was essential. Wronki Prison, established in the late 19th century, is renowned for its stringent security protocols, designed to prevent any unauthorized exits. My first step was to familiarize myself with the prison's layout. Assigned to the metal shop, I had limited movement within the facility, but I seized every opportunity to observe my surroundings. The prison's architecture was a blend of old structures and modern enhancements. The main building, a towering red brick edifice, housed the majority of the cells. Surrounding it were various outbuildings, including workshops, storage facilities, and administrative offices. The perimeter was fortified with high walls topped with razor wire, and guard towers strategically positioned at each corner. Armed guards maintained a vigilant watch, their eyes scanning for any signs of unrest. Regular patrols, both inside and outside the walls, ensured that any escape attempt would be met with swift resistance. Information was my most valuable asset. I began discreetly conversing with inmates who had been at Ronki longer than I had. Through these interactions, I learned about the prison's routines, shift changes, and potential blind spots. One inmate, Tomek, who worked in maintenance, became an invaluable source. He spoke of the sewer system beneath the prison, a network of tunnels that, if navigated correctly, could lead beyond the prison walls. The idea of escaping through the sewer system was both repulsive and perilous. However, it presented a potential path to freedom. I needed more information. Tomek described the system as a labyrinth of pipes and tunnels, some large enough for a person to crawl through, others barely wide enough to allow the flow of waste. The main sewer line, he believed, led to a drainage ditch outside the prison's perimeter. To navigate the sewer system, I required tools, specifically a means to cut through the metal grates that covered the sewer entrances. Working in the metal shop provided access to various tools, but removing them without notice was a challenge. I began by subtly crafting a small, portable metal saw. Using scrap materials, I fashioned a handle and attached a detachable blade. The compact design allowed me to conceal it within my clothing during inspections. Timing was crucial. The prison operated on a strict schedule. 5:30, wake-up call. 6 o'clock, morning roll call. 6:30, breakfast. 7 o'clock, work assignments. 12 o'clock, lunch. 12:30, work resumes. 1700 hours, dinner. 1800 hours, evening roll call. 2200 hours, lights out. The period between 2200 hours and 5:30 offered the longest stretch without mandatory activities, but it was also when security was heightened. Guards conducted random checks, and the silence of a night amplified any noise. Conversely, the work assignment hours provided more ambient noise and movement, potentially masking subtle sounds. However, being absent from my assigned post during these times would raise immediate suspicion. After careful consideration, I identified a potential window, the lunch break. This 30-minute period was chaotic, with inmates moving between the workshops and the dining hall. Guards were occupied managing the flow, and brief absences might go unnoticed. If I could access the sewer system quickly, I might gain a head start before my absence was detected. oig.justice.gov. +4. federalcriminaldefenseattorney.com. +4. correction.org. +4. Navigating the sewer system required physical endurance. Confined spaces, limited oxygen, and the presence of vermin were just a few of the challenges. I began a regimen of exercises to build my strength and flexibility. Push-ups, sit-ups, and stretching became part of my daily routine, performed discreetly in my cell. Beyond the physical challenges, the mental strain was immense. The fear of failure, the possibility of extended sentences if caught, and the uncertainty of the outside world weighed heavily on my mind. I combated these doubts by visualizing my success. Each night, before sleep, I picture myself navigating the tunnels, emerging into the open air, and tasting freedom once more. No plan is foolproof. I devised several contingencies. If discovered during the escape, feigned disorientation, claiming I had gotten lost or was searching for a misplaced item. If unable to cut through the grate, return to my cell and attempt the escape on another day, ensuring no evidence was left behind. If confronted by another inmate, offer a share in the escape plan to gain their silence or assistance. As the day of the planned escape approached, I ensured all elements were in place. The metal saw was tested and sharpened. I memorized the layout of the sewer system as described by Tomek. My physical condition was at its peak. Correction. Org. I mentally rehearsed each step, accounting for potential obstacles. The night before the attempt, I slept fitfully, the weight of my decision pressing down on me. At dawn, escape isn't about bravery. It's about calculation. One wrong move, one miscalculation, and I'd be serving more than 10 years. I'd be buried in this place. I had spent months preparing for this. I knew every guard shift, every blind spot, every second where attention wavered. But even with all my planning, one thing was certain. Nothing ever goes exactly as expected. And that night, I learned that the hard way. When the lunch break bell rang, I moved like every other inmate, slowly, predictably, as if the meal was my only focus. I had my tray in hand, following the crowd toward the mess hall. The transition had to be seamless. I turned a corner near the workshops, dipped behind a stack of broken pallets near the storage room, and crouched low. Seconds later, the flow of inmates passed, none of them noticing my absence. I waited. The guards weren't watching this area closely. Asterisk, asterisk, not yet. Asterisk, asterisk, they assumed all movement was toward the cafeteria. But if I hesitated, I risked being caught during their mid-break patrol. I pushed open the storage room door, slipping inside before anyone could spot me. The storage room smelled like rust and old wood. Dim light filtered through a small window, dust particles swirling in the air. I moved to the grate I had been working on for weeks, the rusted metal cover over the old sewer access. I pulled out the small saw I had hidden in my sleeve. I had tested it before, but this was real now. First stroke, metal groaned. I winced. The sound felt too loud, even though I knew the noise from the cafeteria would mask it. Second stroke, the blade caught, then slid smoothly. Sweat dripped down my back. The heat of the room, the pressure, the feeling that at any second a guard might walk in. It was suffocating. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, asterisk, asterisk, a snap. Asterisk, asterisk. One of the metal bars broke loose. Then another. I grabbed the edges of the grate, lifted, asterisk, asterisk, and it moved, asterisk, asterisk. Beneath it, a dark, gaping hole stretched downward into the unknown. I didn't hesitate. I climbed inside and pulled the grate back into place. The air was thick in the tunnels. Damp, stagnant, reeking of sewage and rot. I flicked on my penlight, the dim beam cutting through the darkness. The tunnel stretched forward, just tall enough for me to crouch walk. Rusted pipes ran along the walls, dripping foul-smelling water. My heartbeat steadied. This was where the real escape began. I followed Tomek's directions carefully, counting my steps, turning where I needed to. Left at the cracked pipe, right past the rusted junction. Keep moving straight until the drain markers start. Asterisk, asterisk. But something was wrong. The air was getting thicker, heavier, and the tunnel. Asterisk, asterisk, it was sloping downward. Asterisk, asterisk. That wasn't part of the plan. I stopped, turned the light toward the path ahead. Dead end. A solid concrete wall where there should have been an exit route. My blood went cold. Tomek had told me the old drainage tunnel led beyond the wall. But either he was wrong, or the prison had sealed it off since his time working maintenance. I was trapped. I forced myself to breathe. Panicking wouldn't help. I had to find another way. I turned back, retracing my steps. My boots splashed through stagnant water, each sound amplified in the enclosed space. I had minutes before my absence was noticed. Maybe less. Then I heard it, a metallic clang from above. I froze. Someone had moved the storage room grate. They knew. I ran, not toward the blocked exit. That was suicide. Instead, I turned down a side passage, hoping, praying that it led somewhere. The tunnel twisted, narrowing until I had to crawl on my hands and knees. The walls pressed in, claustrophobia clawing at the edges of my mind. Then, asterisk, asterisk, a vent. Asterisk, asterisk. A small grate, barely held in place by corroded screws. I scrambled toward it, gripping the rusted edges. Yanked. Pulled. Asterisk, asterisk. It wouldn't budge. The clang of footsteps echoed down the tunnels. They were in here with me. A voice. Muffled, distant. He's in the tunnels. Move fast. I swallowed hard. This was it. Either I broke through this vent, or I was caught. I grabbed my saw again, sawing furiously at the screws, the noise too loud, too sharp. Sweat stung my eyes. My hands ached. Asterisk, asterisk. One screw came loose. Then another. I pressed my shoulder against the vent and pushed with everything I had. It snapped free. Beyond the vent was a vertical drop. The tunnel had led me outside the wall, but it was a straight fall into a drainage canal below. I had no time to think. Behind me, voices grew louder. Closer, asterisk, asterisk. I jumped. Cold water swallowed me whole. The impact knocked the air from my lungs, sending a shock of pain through my ribs. I struggled, kicking upward, breaking the surface with a gasp. Above, flashlights flickered against the tunnel's exit. I couldn't stay here. I turned, dragging myself toward the edge of the canal, ignoring the screaming protest of my muscles. I climbed out, my clothes soaked, my body shaking from exertion and the freezing water. And then I ran. I didn't stop. Not when I reached the tree line, not when I heard distant shouts behind me. I was outside Ronki prison, but I wasn't free. Not yet, because now, they were hunting me. The moment I reached the tree line, I knew I had seconds, maybe minutes, before the guards mobilized. My clothes were soaked, heavy, my body still reeling from the impact in the canal. But pain didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was distance. I ran, not blindly. I had studied the maps, memorized every potential escape route. But nothing could have prepared me for the reality of being hunted. My lungs burned as I pushed deeper into the woods. I had hoped the dense forest beyond Ronki's outer perimeter would slow them down, but I underestimated their reach. Within minutes, I heard the first barks of the dogs. My chest tightened. They were using tracking teams. That changed everything. I could outrun guards, maybe even hide from the searchlights. But dogs? They didn't make mistakes. I veered toward the riverbank, knowing the cold water would mask my scent. Waiting was torture. My muscles cramped instantly from the cold, my body fighting against the shock. But I forced myself forward, moving downstream, staying just beneath the surface, letting only my eyes and nose peek out. I listened. The dogs were still on the far bank, their handlers shouting commands. They hadn't found me yet. I moved carefully, using the natural bends in the river to my advantage, staying low, waiting for them to lose my trail. After what felt like an eternity, the barking faded. I had bought myself time. I crawled onto the opposite bank, teeth chattering, my limbs stiff. The trees here were denser, the terrain rougher. This wasn't freedom. Not yet. Because now I had a new problem. How the hell was I going to disappear? I kept moving, forcing myself through the thick brush, heading toward the railway tracks I had memorized from the prison's old maps. If I could reach them, I could follow them toward Poznan, maybe jump onto a slow-moving freight train. I thought I had evaded the worst. But then, headlights cut through the trees ahead of me. A roadblock. I dropped to the ground, heart pounding. The police were already setting up checkpoints. They had anticipated my escape route. That meant every major road out of Ronki was being watched. I needed a new plan. First, I crawled away from the roadblock, keeping to the shadows. Then, out of nowhere, I heard it. A car engine. Not from the roadblock. From behind me. I turned sharply, ducking behind a fallen tree, my pulse hammering. The headlights swept past, then slowed. The car came to a stop just a few meters from where I was hiding. The driver's door opened. A voice, low, urgent. Get in. Now. I froze. Who the hell was this? The man behind the wheel was older, maybe in his 50s, wearing a dark coat, his face shadowed by the dim light. This wasn't a cop, but that didn't mean he was a friend. I hesitated, glancing back toward the roadblock. The dogs. The search teams. I didn't have a choice. I climbed in. The moment I slammed the door, he hit the gas, the car lurching forward, kicking up gravel. We sped away from the main roads, taking a narrow forest path that twisted through the trees. I turned to him, still breathing hard. Who the hell are you? He didn't answer right away. He just smirked. Then he said something that sent a chill through my bones. You think you're free, Merrick? He glanced at me, his expression unreadable. You have no idea what you just walked into. And just like that, I realized this wasn't over. It was just beginning. The car sped through the narrow forest road, bouncing over uneven dirt, the headlights slicing through the darkness. I sat rigid in the passenger seat, my soaked clothes clinging to my skin, my body still recovering from the escape. But the adrenaline hadn't faded. Not yet. Not when I was sitting next to a man who knew my name. A stranger who knows too much. You want to tell me who the hell you are? I asked, keeping my tone steady. The driver smirked, but kept his eyes on the road. You already know who I am, Merrick. His voice was calm, too calm, like this was all part of a plan. Not mine, but his. I studied his profile. Mid-50s, sharp eyes, well-dressed but practical. Not a cop. Not some random stranger. This man had been waiting for me. You think you escaped? We took a sharp turn, gravel, spitting from the tires. You think you escaped Ronky on your own? He asked. I frowned. I did. He shook his head, almost amused. No, you had help. You just didn't realize it. My stomach tightened. What was he saying? I had spent months planning, memorizing guard schedules, finding weak spots, studying the tunnels. No one helped me. No one except Tomek. You're telling me this was planned? I asked. The man nodded. Not by you. But yes. I clenched my fists. Tomek. He told me about the tunnels. Was he working for you? The man gave a slow nod. Tomek did what he was told. He gave you just enough information to make the escape possible. My mind was spinning. I thought I had planned the escape. But the dead-end tunnel, the roadblocks, the tracking dogs, they weren't mistakes. They were part of the plan. Not my plan. His. Why me? I turned to face him fully. Why? His expression darkened. Because you were put in Ronky for a reason. And now you're out for a reason. I gritted my teeth. I was framed. He nodded. I know. The confirmation sent a chill through me. This man, whoever he was, knew the truth about my case. Which meant he knew who really set me up. He pulled the car onto a deserted road, cut the engine, and turned to me. You have two choices, Merrick. I stayed silent. One, you keep running. Alone. With no resources, no money, and every law enforcement agency in Poland looking for you. I exhaled sharply, already hating the second option. Or two, you work with me, and I give you a chance to clear your name. I stared at him. Who are you? He gave me that smirk again. A man who doesn't exist. Just like you now. I looked out at the road ahead. Empty. Unknown. The weight of true freedom settled on me. I had escaped Ronky prison. But now, I was stepping into something even more dangerous. And I had no idea where it would lead.